without really trying to be overbearing or patronizing in some sense. The second part would be to empathize. And clearly here, we are all in this together. We are all struggling through various kinds of challenges. The employees want the employers and everyone else to be part of that and want to share that thing together. So whatever we are doing, whatever we are observing, so we have been very transparent with all our employees in terms of the orders, the cancellations, all kinds of challenges that we are seeing. And we are in this together is what we want to tell. And we don't claim that we know everything, but we want to share with employees what our options are so that when we make choices, we are making choices together. So that is the very important part of what we need to do with the emphasis part. And finally, we don't know where the future is going to come out when this thing ends, when it ends, and all of those kinds of things. So we are in this together and we need to explore what the future might look like. So all of us are spending enough time trying to think about how to work together to build the capabilities, think about what the market might look like, and explore new stuff as we go along. So just to quickly summarize, engage, empathize, and explore. That's really what I think we ought to be doing at this time with our employees.
I think you were really bang on in terms of the fact that emotion, even within an organization, I think it flows top down. And in terms of the 3 E's that you've left our viewers with, they're easy takeaways, they're easy to remember. And as simple as they are, I believe that these are the kind of elements that have a profound impact on the culture and the pulse in an organization. Moving right on to Leland, please. Leland, if I may. We know that fear and greed are dominant emotions in business. With your sophisticated understanding of human emotions and applied communication psychology, what do you think teams and employees around the world are feeling?
I think first we need to recognize that we're riding this tiger, we're not directing it. And what the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated is that we're dealing with an ugly little virus parasite that wants to invade us, doesn't know national boundaries, doesn't know demographics, doesn't know anything except attaching itself to somebody else. So what it really demonstrates is that we are all brothers and sisters on this little spaceship called Earth, and we need to recognize that. I think we recognize and need to be honest about the emotions. It's the full range of emotions we can expect, from fear and anxiety to hope and understanding, and how do we come out of this and how do we come out of it stronger. Most important, I think, for leaders of any team or any organization is to be open, to be honest, to be transparent, be authentic, and to recognize that these emotions are real, they are natural, it's okay to feel the emotions, and most importantly, to provide opportunities for people to talk about their emotions, to listen with your ears instead of your mouth, to listen more than you talk.
Very well put, Leland, very well put. I think listening is a learned art, and it's probably one of the most critical skills in communication. Thank you for shedding light on that. I've known and worked with you for decades. I must say this about Leland. In the 20 years, it's going to be 20 years in September, I believe, Leland.
You were a child then.
Thank you. I have never seen you angry in 20 years. And I think that's remarkable that you would be able to regulate your emotion at that level. You live and breathe the communication principles you preach.
I don't know if you can see this, but everybody on their desk and our team has this, what gear are you in? And the important thing, I think, for leaders is to recognize that we make the best decisions when we deal with a chessboard rather than a checkerboard. When we're dealing with thought and analysis and thinking things through, we come to better decisions. It doesn't mean that we don't have emotions. I was an intense runner for 20 years and released my emotions there. My knees started complaining, but I do yoga, I meditate, I lift weights, I treadmill, and I try to stay as calm as I can be. As Vidya knows, I haven't always been calm and this calm, but I'm glad that in the time that you've known me, you have. The important thing as leaders is that we be real and we be open, we be authentic, and we be honest with our people who are working with.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to come to Eric next. Eric, I cannot wait for you to share the story. Before I come to the question, can you please share with your viewers in India the most interesting story behind your full name?
Sure, absolutely. And first of all, thank you for having me. And to all the friends in India, I want to say good evening. I'm a huge fan of India. So here's a story about my full name. I came to Silicon Valley in 1997 to join WebEx as one of the first several founding engineers. The WebEx co-founder and former CEO was Subala Iyer. He was born in India. And Subala is my mentor and also my current Zoom investor, my advisor. For anything important and critical, I always call him to get his advice and many things. And back to 1998, in one of the dinner, and also we have only small team, around a dozen people, and we eat a pizza together with Subala there. My name was back then was EricS.Yuan. And Subala told me that, Eric, if you really want to be successful with some good luck, it's time to change your name, to add the middle name S. Okay, I really like what he said. Okay, after that dinner, I completely changed my name to EricS.Yuan. But I can tell you the truth, I was indeed very lucky after that. So later on, I realized, Subala is very good at, I think it's something like, India astrology and all those kind of forecasts. But after that, even for my company, a lot of important things, I always call him to get his advice and share with him my like, when I was born, my birthday date, a lot of things. So that's why I really appreciate for Subala's help. And also I really love India. Thank you.
Eric, that is just fascinating. If I might say, demonstration of respect and regard for your mentor, a guru, as they say in India, is paramount in Indian culture. And by weaving and taking that initial into your own name is the highest and the purest forms of demonstration of gratitude. So I think that is really very high of you, and it's a story that many of us will remember for the rest of our lives. But here is a question for you, Eric. I know that happiness is at the core of your philosophy. My mother is 76 years old, and she lives in another city. And with this lockdown, she obviously wanted to stay connected, and I thought new technology would be too much for her. Guess what? She's Zooming now, and she says it's really easy. So I wanted to share that with you because that's one tiny example of happiness delivered. Your product, Eric, is proving to be a blessing for so many at this time. Could you please share with us what your mission and vision for Zoom is?
Yeah, thank you. So when I started the company in 2011, I envisioned a future of video conferencing like Zoom can deliver a much better experience than face-to-face meeting. So imagine a world where in the future we have a call like this, and where people can speak a different language. We can leverage real-time language translation. No matter which language you are speaking, everybody can understand each other. Or if for the first time I say, Leland, I really like you, really admire what you said. I want to give you a hug. For now, you cannot feel my intimacy. In the future, you can. And plus, if Warren, you are drinking the coffee, just one click, we can digitize the smile, also can enjoy the smile here. Imagine a world like that. I think in the future, maybe in 10 or 20 years, all those cool features will be added into video conferencing. That's our vision. Video conferencing can deliver a much better experience than face-to-face meeting. Our mission is to help to make it happen, to deliver a secure and frictionless video collaboration experience. But we are not there yet. But I think it will take many years effort, but that's a future. Yeah. That's a vision.
It's overwhelming because it's so high, and I know you will do it. And I can see how you want to add more dimensions and more aspects to an existing product. My next question here is for Warren. I'm sure you'll agree, Warren, that undeniably anxiety pervades the business world. There's a precipitous surge of unemployment globally. 66% of organizations have deferred or suspended their hiring schedule at different job levels. And anyone that knows you, Warren, will know your remarkable story of professional growth. Based on your experience, do you realistically think that leaders can continue to maintain transparency in today's environment without betraying genuine anxiety and panic?
Great question. And first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity and the privilege of participating. And thank you for the opportunity to join a panel of so many esteemed individuals. So I'm very grateful to be part of this. Just in terms of responding to the question, I think when I look back at my career as I've progressed and as I've taken on more and more responsibility, I think the greatest leap forward for me was when I stopped practicing positivity all of the time. I think initially when I took on responsibilities as a manager, one of the things that I kind of wanted to do was take all the worry and the concern and the issues and the challenges, kind of own that, and then represent that in a kind of rose-tinted way to the individuals that I was responsible for. And what I found very quickly was that that undermined my authenticity, that compromised trust, and it compromised alignment and support for the objectives and the targets that we were driving towards. And so I think it is absolutely critical as a leader, and Leland and Anand have touched on this. It's critical to be authentic. It's critical to tell it like it is. And I think what extended organizations are looking for is an understanding of the facts. They're looking for leadership to take ownership and responsibility for those issues and their challenges. They're looking for leadership to define what they're going to do about that. And then I think that what they're looking for is leaders to have a very high say-do ratio, so that the follow-through on the commitments that you make to dealing with the challenges are there for everybody to see. I was very privileged in 2011. I went to Harvard and did the advanced management program. And one of the afternoons, whilst I was there, Jack Walsh came in and spent the afternoon with us. And one of the things that he shared was that from his perspective, and given the experience that he had he said that the meanest thing that one could do to an employee is to not let them know where they stood. He felt that his duty of care to an individual was demonstrated by being straightforward and honest in the context of where they stood and where the organization stood. And so I think that it's a great testament to the fact that that one has to be open, one has to be transparent, but then one has to take responsibility for the situations that we find ourselves in and the actions that we then commit ourselves to in order to protect the best interests of the company and by association, the employees that we are responsible for.
Brilliantly put, Warren. I think that the more I read about your previous interviews and I listen to you talk here, what I'm blown away by personally, and my personal takeaway is this, that some of the things that you're saying may be cliche, but they are the ones that have the most profound and significant impact on our teams. especially when you mentioned about being authentic to yourself and keeping things real when you talk to your employees. And maybe this is a nice segue into my next question to Anand. Anand, you know, you're a beacon of hope globally. So we're looking to you to take us away from a certain gloom and doom. And could you please throw some light on what 3 top leadership skills you think should leaders try to develop to navigate through this current crisis?
So it's a very nice but a difficult question. But reality is that, you know, during crisis, people behave quite differently. And sometimes as a leader, I think you have to step up and manage crisis leadership differently from just normal leadership. So the 3 things that I would like to mention here would be, first one would be regarding speed and agility. Because when you are in crisis, you cannot be waiting for decisions. Sometimes the speed of decision making is very important. But while you are making decisions, you cannot be static on them. If you've made a decision, depending on a certain situation, in a crisis, things move really fast. Things keep changing all the time. So you cannot be very stuck on one decision and say, this is what we have decided and we're going to be always behaving like that. So speed and agility are 2 things that are very important in a crisis situation, and they sort of go hand in hand. So that would be my first of the 3 things that you want me to talk about. The second one would be teamwork. You know, in a crisis, again, while the leader is responsible and everyone looks up to the leader to make the decisions at speed and agility, actually, you know, people freeze if you don't let them be part of the team. So it is very important at this point to really work together with your team members. That includes not just your first line of executives who work for you, but pretty much across the organization. People are looking for direction. They need to be told to some extent that you are open to their ideas, you are willing to listen to them, and you want to work together with them to make things happen. And one of the toughest parts that I find in terms of leadership, and especially for people like me who've been founder running the business, is delegation. You know, you always feel like doing yourselves everything yourselves. You think you can get it done faster if you just kind of decided and went on. But the reality is that when you delegate and get other people to work on their parts or be working together as a team, the whole is much bigger than the individual parts. And that is an important part of teamwork. And finally, I want to mention that in crisis and in general, decisiveness of the leader is very important. We will have many people in the team who would have opinions, but finally, as a leader, you are accountable for results, and it is your decision that might matter. So you cannot do committee-based decisions in a crisis situation. So someone has to take a call, and it's the leader's job to take that call, and they need to be decisive. So they are expected to listen and look at everything around, make a decision, move quickly, and then if that decision is not the best and they find something more in a few weeks or in a day, then they should be willing to accept that their decision was not right and make the change that is needed, so that you are making the right decisions as you go along. It can't be static, and you have to kind of navigate your way into these kinds of crises, because you don't always know how it might end up. And while you do all of this stuff, it is also important to have the long-term view of the business. You cannot forget that. I mean, you cannot completely pawn off your entire business for the short-term requirements that are needed. While it is important that you don't sink, you really have to get to the coast and not just be stranded there for a while. So I think, speed and agility, teamwork, and finally decisiveness would be the 3 traits that I would focus on at this time of crisis.
So articulate and very deep, and also very practical. I think that in this time of uncertainty, the hard part is for leaders to focus and find the confidence within themselves, because there's a loss of sense of control. However, Anand, let me tell you what it feels like to interact with you, if I may. Having seen many of your earlier panel discussions, I recall even McKinsey's Noshir Kaka referred to you as unassuming. And I think that one of the most overpowering things about you is your humility and your groundedness. So it's truly overwhelming for the listener to take and interact with a person who has walked the walk and talked the talk, I think. Leland, if I may now come to you next. I know you believe perception is reality. That's one thing that you have said through the years. 75% of organizations are redefining their communication strategies to increase engagement of employees. What 3 points of advice will you offer to leaders struggling to construct messages to their internal teams, especially if you're trying to lay out a challenging landscape on one side, but you're trying to be reassuring on the other as well?
Thank you, Vidya. And I have to comment, while you may never see me angry, I've never seen Vidya without a solution in the 20 years that I've known you. And part of my not being angry, quite frankly, is a result of Vidya. I first met Vidya guest lecturing to her graduate class at Michigan State University in the College of Communication Arts and Sciences. And part of what the answer to your question is that we have to be very open and be open to growth and let our minds grow. I grew up in Michigan, in the Midwest of the United States. My great grandfather was literally born in a dirt floored log cabin, which became a farm. I grew up with an orientation to Western thinking and thinking that other points of view and other ways of thinking weren't as valid. And part of our team, our team is very deliberately multicultural, multiracial. Part of the contribution that I thank you for, Vidya, was opening my mind up to Eastern ways of thinking and other ways of looking at the world. And in fact, I am now a regular practitioner of yoga and meditation because of Vidya. And I think that leads into your question, and that is that, again, as leaders, first get real. As we would say in the States, just get frigging real. You've got to accept reality as you find it. I think next is to get off your heels and get on your toes, get out in front of the situation. And third is to listen and engage and to recognize your team. You talked about the family farm model of management, and that is simply a recognition of our interdependence upon each other. We all have designated roles and jobs that we do, but we all have to pitch in no matter whatever happens. We're all in this together. And I think what the COVID-19 is demonstrating is that as a globe, we are one world. We are one world of brothers and sisters, as I said, this little spaceship. So as a leader, I think you've got to provide a sense of where is the future for a group of people, your customers, your team, your suppliers, all of your stakeholders, your shareholders. But you've got to be real. If you're not real and not authentic and not honest, nobody's going to believe you. And yes, perception is greater than reality. So you have to think about what somebody else, how they interpret what you say. What you intend is important, but the other person gets to determine what your message is. And you have to be real about that.
Thank you, Leland. Interesting takeaways and very useful. Eric, can I come to you next, please? A compelling personal story. I'm certain there are many. We all know that your visa to the United States many years ago was rejected 8 times. But can you give us an example from your own professional experience where you converted a challenge to to an opportunity?
I think, yeah, thank you for that. Actually, you are so right, and I was pursuing my American dream in 1996 and tried to get my visa applied for 80 times. 80 times. My next attempt was very successful, but it did teach me a lesson. So don't give up. Perseverance is very important, especially during this crisis time. How we can leverage this crisis, leverage the failure to completely transform your business to the next level, transform your team to the next level, your product, and also your business model, almost everything. For now, see, I can just use Zoom, for example. And Zoom was built for serving the business enterprise customers. We never expected so many first-time consumers or K-12 schools to use Zoom. when this pandemic crisis started, and we realized we needed to do something to show our corporate social responsibility to help the world. When we realized Friday, a lot of K-12 schools will shut down the campus. So we had a meeting over the weekend. Let's add more capacity to help the schools, to help the world. And guess what? The first several days were successful, but very soon we realized a lot of K-12 schools, they do not have IT team. We have all kinds of security features built in. Normally, corporate IT team, they are going to enable password, meeting room, all those features. But K-12 schools, they do not have IT resources. Quite often they have a meeting without a password. Then the hackers, a lot of times teenagers, they might hack into the meeting. I think from that perspective, that's a failure. That's a crisis because that's a perception. So we learn from that. We quickly fix the problem. We keep everything open and transparent. Also, we took a bigger step back, trying to understand what had happened. I think as a CEO, it's my mistake. Because even if I have a good intention, we need to think through all the scenarios to make sure every decision is thoughtful. That's what we learn. Because of that, it's going to help us. We are going to become a better and stronger company after the crisis.
Thank you, Eric. I think you spoke about perseverance, you spoke about learning, you spoke about innovation, and you spoke about responsibility. It's magnificent that you would put that like that, because what I do know is that you've dreamt, you've struggled, you've got people together, and you've showed us all how it's done. You being so approachable, grounded, and earnest truly makes the other person want to think about what it is they want to change about themselves. Warren, if I may come to you next. A product development company like yours, Warren, needs some fundamental and permanent alterations in its gene construct. And perhaps that is why accountability and ownership are traits that you've championed. But how does one find the courage to do so in this space of adversity?
Again, another great question. You know, I think when I look at courage, I think Nelson Mandela basically got it right when he said that that courage is not the absence of fear, but it's the triumph in overcoming it. And when I look back at the way in which I've evolved as a person and the way in which the various companies that I've been responsible for have evolved, there have been some very scary times. There have been some very difficult challenges that we've had to overcome. And I think one of the things that I've come to terms with is that, you know, fear is an emotion, but courage is much more of a practice. And you develop courage, I think, through experience and through doing things. And you know, my dad used to always say to me that it's not always dark at 7 whenever there was a bad challenge. And that type of perspective, again, I think comes through experience. In 1992, I was part of a division that was part of a publicly listed company. And that company got over leveraged, and we were given the opportunity to effect a management buyout and take the division private. And so we begged, stealed, and borrowed enough money. We mortgaged our houses and we took the organization private. And then for 3 to 4 years, we struggled to make payroll. You know, that was a scary time. And we managed to get through that by coming in early and staying late and working hard. And I'm sure Anand has gone through the same experience, and I'm sure Eric has too. When you go through that type of an experience, one develops a level of perspective and confidence that I think prepares you for the ups and downs of the business cycle. For those of us that went through 2008 and 2009, those were very scary times. You know, for those of us I live here in Detroit with Leland. 2 out of the big 3 went bankrupt. Many of the supply chain had liquidity challenges. We were sitting as an organization on an $8 million receivable at one of the big 2 that went bankrupt, and there were some tough decisions that we had to make in terms of whether or not we cut our losses or whether we stayed and we demonstrated our commitment to the organization that we were engaged with. Once you go through those types of things, it hones your confidence that if you do the right things, then you'll be able to persevere. So, I think that there is a great deal of fear that currently surrounds the crisis. But for those of us that have been through, again, ups and downs in the past, one develops a level of perspective and an understanding of what one needs to do. And Anand talked before, about the importance of speed and agility, the importance of clarity, and then the importance of making decisions when the organization requires them, and then owning those decisions and taking responsibility for them. And I think, the best leaders that will come out of the current challenge will demonstrate all of those traits.
Warren, I recall reading how impactful your decision was when you decided to stand by these automakers back in those difficult times. I also have had the good fortune of interacting with Maya Angelou, the poetess, and I asked her, because she talked so much about virtues, and I asked her what the most important virtue was, and she said exactly what you were saying now. The most important virtue is by far courage, because it is the one virtue that allows us to be everything else, regardless of circumstance. Because
but the encouraging thing is that it can be learned. It's a learned practice. It's not something that I think is inherent. And I think some people demonstrate it more than others, but it is something that you can hone and develop.
Yes, and I want all the panelists here to know that in the profile of the people who are listening to us right now, we have leaders of all kinds of organizations, journalists, we have entrepreneurs, we have students, we have people from associations, we have people from multiple countries who are tuning in right now. And I know for sure that they are finding an incredible amount of value in your words. So if I may come to you, Anand, next, what you did for placements as a student, not just for yourself, but your entire batch, is a story, I think, that has been, and rightfully so, that has been told so many times. What advice do you have for the thousands of young, ambitious, capable, but anxious professionals today who are in their early or mid-careers?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times we, especially students, get very stressed and worried about what's going to happen and things like that. And rightfully so, but you have to realize that your career is a marathon and not just a sprint. And the fact that we are in this COVID situation is not just happening to you alone, but all of us are in this together. So it's not that we are losing time and someone else is gaining in the process. So this is really something that you have to take into the right perspective and use the opportunity that we have to think differently and think broader and bigger. I have been thinking about managing careers for the last several years, especially, and I have a framework in some sense that I'm going to share with you on how individuals should look at their careers. And the way I like to suggest to people is that, normally when you start your careers, you are in your early 20s. And the way the world is moving, we are all going to be working till we are 75 or maybe even longer. We are all living longer, and the world is going to need all of us to work longer and longer. And this is a necessity. So you're looking at a career of almost 50 years. And in that context, this whole few months that we're going to have here are a small fraction of what might be dealt with. Now, if you're planning your 50-year career, this is what you should do. In your first 10 years of your career, you should be focusing on learning and networking. Because, and that doesn't mean you don't do this later on. It's just that it is much harder to do this when you don't do it in the first 10 years. So in the first 10 years, your job should be to learn and network. In the second 10 years, you need to become an expert at something. And the world should say that you are an expert at something. The world does not like people who have 20 years of general experience. People have, if you have 20 years of experience, you should be able to say what that 20 years of experience has done for you. So who are you because of that 20 years of experience is relevant. So having some expertise, some depth is essential. Now, when you look at your third 10 years, it is very different. By the time you are in your mid 40s, early 40s, you are now looking at where your corner office is. By now, you should have a realistic estimate of where you are going to be in your corner office. And here's where you need to plan backwards. You need to identify at that point, where do you want to end up, and then work your way backwards. So this is how you do your third 10. And in the last 10, or where you are working for a paid job, you need to focus on delivering to your excellence, mentoring people, and thinking about how you will contribute to your society post your retirement. So now this is really how I have worked out the framework of what you need to do in the first 10, the second 10, the third 10, and the fourth 10. But right now, let me just focus on the first 10. Most of the young students are in the early careers and they're looking at various things to do. At this point, I recommend that all young people should try to be as diverse as possible, learn as many different skills as you can, create hobbies, learn how to play whatever games you want to play. Because what you do in your first 10 years is something that is very precious and it's hard to repeat it later. And I must admit that I did not think like this in my first 10 years. I was very single track in pursuing academics, career, whatever else. We never thought of anything else except the few things that we were chartered to do. But I wish we had done something more. And the second very important thing I would recommend is for people to learn how to network. It is much easier for younger people to network, and the skill of learning to network early in your early career will take you a long way, because all of us here will admit that our network is really what has helped us be successful in our careers and in our businesses. And that ability to network is sort of what you need to cultivate early on. So in the first 10 years, take your opportunity right now that you have, learn as many different things as you can. Right now online, you can do lots of things. And thanks to Zoom, you have every class you can imagine available online. So take opportunity of this at this moment. This is a short period. There's a long way for you to go. And let this small blip in your marathon not hurt your long-term plans.
Thank you. Thank you, Anand. I think that the way that you've broken it down, certain there's something there for everybody in those broad slabs that you mentioned. Leland, you next, please. Having seen and managed several crises over the decades, you're the person I think that I should ask this question to. So let's talk briefly about the post-COVID lockdown era, whenever that comes. What are some of the landmines, Leland, that you think business owners and leaders should anticipate?
I think that Warren already made reference to, if you forgive me for being provincial here for a moment, the sense of dips and turns that we have in Detroit. We have in the United States a comment that if the nation gets a cold, Detroit gets pneumonia. So we've always been prepared for managing for downturns. We never really expected a free fall. But it provides a toughness, a strength. We call it, Detroit strong, but it also provides the ability for adjustment. I am blessed with very strong women in my life, and thank you, Vidya. I would not be who I am today if Vidya had not come into my life 20 years ago. And my partner, Tina Bassett, and I, Warren, we started the firm with great expectations and had no clients at the beginning of all of this. So we know that well. But I think what Tina has as triple A, you have to accept, adjust, and adapt. And I think that we have to, you also have Tina's triple T, we have to think things through. As leaders, we can anticipate landmines that are going to be unknown unknowns. NASA calls it the unknown unknown, the unk. We can anticipate that we are going to have very nervous people in our customers and our employees, our supply chain, our finance world. We have to be in constant contact with them. And Anand has mentioned, everybody has mentioned, we have to communicate. Eric, thank you so much for giving us the platform that allows us to be able to be connected around the world. We also have to recognize that the importance of putting the health and safety first. Our customers, our employees all have to understand that. But it's also an enlightened self-interest, because unfortunately, one of the landmines that's going to come out of this will be litigation. We're already seeing in American television the 800 commercials from law firms saying, if you've been affected by your employer unfairly in COVID-19, give us a call. So we got to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to reassure that we're doing it right. Both our panelists have all mentioned the long-term game. We can play the short-term game, and it's a very appealing at times, but this has to be a long-term chessboard. You've got to be in it to stay in it. So I think as leaders, we have to be willing to adapt, to change, to be real, to work, to collaborate, to be vulnerable. We have to be open. Yes, it's our plan. We have to make the decisions, and Anand's exactly right about that. But we'll have the best plans if we engage everybody that's affected by that plan and listen rather than talk.
Thank you. Thank you. We did get a little delayed starting this session. And I'm thinking, you know, we might go a little overboard past 9, but we're all pressed a little bit for time here from this point on. But we're going to try to get through a few more questions that I'm certain that everybody wants to know the answers to. Eric, if I may ask you, we all know your personal story is incredibly powerful. So what is your advice to a business leader today who feels a complete loss of control, who's coping with a sense of failure and just wants to give up?
I think that's a great question. I think I really want to echo what Dr. Anand said, very well said. I think a leader must be decisive. During this crisis, you got to make decisions. This is crisis every business, every leader they are facing. But you got to adapt quickly to tell your team you want to make a change. You want to adapt to the new situation. Don't be afraid of a failure. I think I really like what John Kennedy said before. Those who dare to fail miserably can achieve greatly. So leverage these opportunities. Don't be afraid of failure. The next step of failure is the success. That's a greater success. Leverage this opportunity. Think beyond today. Think future. That's my advice.
Your positivity is so infectious. It's just coming through the screen. Thank you so much for that. Warren, coming to you next, please. Every rung of the ladder that you've climbed represents battles that you won. Your struggle to raise funds for your initial entrepreneurial venture is one example. We all agree that this is a crisis which is hitting where it hurts the most. So what's your advice, Warren, for entrepreneurs who've been brought to a standstill in operations from a psychological and an emotional point of view?
I think if I look at the response to the crisis for most entrepreneurs, there's kind of two components to it. There's the hard side of the business. There's the responding to the immediate challenges, and we've had a number of acronyms today, but our response is really driven by 3 C's. It's customers, it's costs, and it's cash, and it's also ensuring that we again fulfill our duty of care to our employees. The second phase of response is looking to leverage the crisis to accelerate some of the transformational components of the agenda that we're driving as far as our strategy is concerned. And then the third component is positioning capacity and capability to respond when the crisis starts to dissipate and we have the opportunity to return to the new normal. So, all of the entrepreneurs that I know, all of the entrepreneurs that I'm interacting with are following a similar agenda. But I think when it comes to the emotional side of things, the psychological side of things, from my perspective, that really is attached to the meaning and the purpose that you take from the organization that you're a part of, and the agenda that you're pursuing inside of your life. If there's meaning and purpose, then one can put into perspective the issues and the challenges that you're going through. For us, Our raison d'etre, our purpose is to engineer a better world. We want to do that by helping our clients engineer cleaner and safer products. We want to improve the quality of life for those people that use those products. And we want to give back to the communities in which we live and work. That type of meaning and sense of purpose is what helps us get through the ups and downs of the business cycle. And my advice to any entrepreneur that is struggling in terms of the psychological challenge is, again, to seek meaning from what it is that they're doing. And also, as many of the panelists have referenced today, look at this as a marathon and not a sprint. Look at this in the context of, again, the ups and downs that one goes through when you're involved in running a business.
Thank you. Thank you, Warren. I think one of the key things that you've done here is you've broken down something that we've tried to do at Bassett Education India as well. And in our response to this crisis is actually broken down into 3 parts. So we have a managerial response, we have an operational response, and we have a communication response. And I think when you tie up these 3 strategies together, then you kind of go down and collectively address the different audiences with different stakes in multiple ways. Thank you for that. And if I may tell you, Warren, you're a one-man case study, I think, on preparation and focus. Your focus on customer centricity and your insistence on raising the bar, I think, holds lessons for every professional. And I thank you for that. Anand, if we can please come to you. The world and the country are so grateful for your organization's contribution of rupees 25,000 crores to fight COVID.
That's just 25 crores.
Yeah, sorry, 25 crores. I'm sorry. Yes. So there many other companies may wish to do so, but I think they're gasping for air. You're not a stranger to crisis. With many CEOs listening in right now, I'm sure they would want to know if it's possible for an organization to maintain a human face while balancing the challenging economic imperative.
No, so it's essential, and we need to do this. We are all part of the society, and we have to live and float with it. And finally, I want to just mention that in these kinds of situations, it's the actions that speak louder than words. We can say whatever we want to say, but both as individuals and organizations, if we do not act on those things, it's kind of useless talking about it. So if we believe that we are in crisis, we know everybody is in trouble, we need to start as an organization and chip in. As individuals, each one of us needs to chip in. We need to be seen as contributing to the local community and the society, because unless we do our part, nobody believes us, right? So it is important that you are not just talking about things, but actually doing something about it. And if you do the right things and small steps one at a time, that basically creates the face of, being sort of part of this whole community where you want to be seen as a good Samaritan or a good company and somebody who believes in the right value systems.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anand. Leland, you're from Detroit, and I know you just said it's where things are as real as they can be. So attempting to keep this very real, can you please tell us if positive thinking can be a dangerous thing in an environment of so much uncertainty and anxiety? In other words, Leland, how can leaders avoid misleading their employees with positive talk if the future looks so bleak?
I would phrase it that positivity is not a negative thing, if I can play that word. It's a matter of how you use it. If you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a future, if you don't have a sense of what is coming, then you lose your energy. Again, I referred to the agrarian side of my heritage. We have a phrase, plant trees whose shade you will never enjoy, while you enjoy the shade of trees planted by people you never knew. And so as leaders, we have to be thinking of that marathon, as Warren mentioned, of all of our panelists have mentioned. We have to think down the road. I think you need to be positive, but you also need to be honest, and you need to be realistic. If the fire is going on, you can't say there's not a fire. We are been told that we're at a war with this virus, and that's one way of looking at it. if you're taking a platoon out in the desert and you are going to be responsible as an on-site, you have to accept that decision as yours. But you say to everybody else, be sure you challenge me, look at my thinking, talk with me, share with me points of view, because if you don't tell me something that I don't know, somebody's going to get hurt. And I think what this is demonstrating is that we are going to have to come closer to each other, or as one said, build a better organization. We are going to be appreciating each other. Sometimes we don't understand or value something until we lose it, or we are afraid of losing it. And so part of it is we're understanding the importance of our relationships to each other, which is again the beauty of Zoom. Thank you, Eric, for giving us this platform. Other platforms out there, they are not as consumer friendly. They are not as responsive as yours. And I think what we're looking at is a new digital world, that a new normal that will be defined in the future, because we are going to have to reach out to each other and appreciate each other more.
Thank you, Leland. Very wise, very sage, and your years of experience and wisdom come shining through. Eric, next question to you, please. What is happening, I think, is beyond the control of man, and there's so much that cannot be predicted at this point. Can you please define for us the role of flexibility, adaptability, and response time, and how a leader can strategize with respect to these aspects?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Response time, also adaptability, and also flexibility is really important. The way I look at this is, especially during this crisis full of uncertainty, the way I look at this, don't look at today's problem from today's perspective. You fast forward in 10 years, 20 years, fast forward to 2030, 2040, and look at what's happening now. Tell the young version of yourself, what are you going to do? Make sure you always do the right things and be patient, and so you'll be okay. So that's just my, the way I look at this. Yeah.
True. I think if we all just stay positive, talk to our older self and remind ourselves that it's going to be okay, it really just might be. Thank you, Eric. Warren, if I may come to you next, please. So where do you think C-suite executives and leaders of larger organizations should focus their energies on?
Well, as part of our response to the crisis, I've had the opportunity and the privilege of interacting with many of our C-suite sponsors from the various customers that we deal with in different parts of the world. And I think there's been a kind of a common theme to the discussions that we've had. The most pervasive theme, I think, is the fact that we're all learning a great deal about our organizations through the experience that the crisis has imposed upon us. And that's been challenging us to look at the different paradigms and the different ways in which we do things. I think 3-4 months ago, we had a particular view of how we interacted with customers. We had a particular view of how we got stuff done inside of the organization, and that's been challenged. And a great example of that is that 3-4 weeks ago, and this is a testament to Eric and the platform that he's got. We held a workshop for one of our customers, 60 people in different parts of the world, 5 hours a day for 5 days. And we did virtual whiteboarding. We were able to solution an approach that we were looking to take to an enterprise IT engagement. We were able to solution an approach that I don't think we would have been able to do if we'd have met face to face. And similarly, the hierarchical way that we've typically got things done inside of our organization, the crisis has demonstrated the ability to be somewhat boundaryless, to break down silos, to frame challenges for the organization, and to empower teams to be created, solve the problem, and then dissipate and go on to other things. So, those types of learnings, certainly for us, are things that we want to capitalize and we want to have inform our approach in the future. And in the dialogue with the C-suite, I've been having similar examples that have been played back to me in terms of the way in which, despite the issues and despite the challenges, this is a great learning opportunity and an opportunity for us, to reset the approach that we take to running our businesses going forward.
Thank you. I think when leaders talk about what they've done, rather than just telling people what they should be doing, it has a whole another sense of validity. And thank you so much, Warren, for sharing that. That was really our last question to the panelists for the day. But there are a couple of things that I'd like to see if we can accomplish before we called it a night. And I'd like all of you to just leave us with your last thoughts on this session, if you will, please. Anybody, welcome to go first.
I'd like to thank you, Vidya, for really coordinating this so beautifully. I really enjoyed being on this one, and it was a good learning experience for me. And thank you, Vidya, for inviting me as well. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Anand. Yes, anybody else?
I'll jump in. I've never been known to be shy, I suppose. And I think probably the theme that comes through all of this, to pick up on a comment Warren made, and certainly Anand and Eric have commented on, and that is the connectiveness, breaking down silos. Our whole approach to human communication behavior is a receiver orientation from the receiver's point of view. And Vidya has a wonderful phrase that she uses that summarizes everything that we try to accomplish. And that is, you cannot whistle a symphony. You have to have all the sections and the instruments of the orchestra working together at the same time, and a very well thought out score, a plan, and a conductor, a CEO, a leader, a team leader, somebody who pulls it all together. So what I would hope that we come away with today is to recognize that we're all connected to each other, that we are a connected planet, and Zoom, for example, gives us the ability to do that, and that we can break down silos and work with each other and make it a better world.
Thank you, Leland. Thank you so much.
So Vidya, first of all, thank you for having me. It's my great honor to join this
Pleasure.
opportunity. I'm very grateful. Every Zoom employee are also very grateful, so that we have an opportunity to serve the world, to make the world a better place. I think sort of like the dream is coming true. Thank you.
Eric, you have an incredible team in India. They are really something. Thank you. Warren, coming to you.
Just let me echo the comments from everybody else. Thank you, Vidya and Leland, for providing the opportunity to be able to interact. It's been a great opportunity to share my views, but more importantly, a great opportunity to learn from everybody else. I think the one thing that I would reinforce, and I touched on this before, is the saying that my dad used to have when I was growing up, that it will not always be dark at 7. Despite the fact that we are going through these challenges, we will come through this, and we will come out through it with lessons that we will learn, that will inform, hopefully, a brighter future. So let's stay positive, and let's stay confident in the opportunity that we have going forward.
Indeed, Warren, I'm going to mentally embed that in my head. It's not always going to be dark at 7. Yes, I'm definitely going to. May I just invite my colleague, Mr. Pranay Oswal. He's a Senior Director at Bassett Education India. And I know he had some technical challenges in the beginning, but he's back very briefly, just with a little bit about my background.
Great. Thank you very much, Vidya. It's truly been an enriching session so far, and I'm confident it's truly inspiring to all our viewers, from college students to C-suite executives as well. So truly, thank you very much, everyone. It's really inspirational to all. Yeah. Well, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce you, and I take this humble opportunity to introduce you all to our moderator, everyone. She's a communication strategist, a maven in cross-cultural training, media relations, and interpersonal communication. She's a master trainer, an executive coach, and life skills expert. A self-driven lady, inspiring, and as a leader, she really cares. She relocated to India after serving as the Vice President of Client Services at Bassett&Bassett in Detroit, Michigan. She then served as the Managing Director of Asia Pacific Operations for the group. During her expansive professional career, she has worked with teams from all over the world. An alumnus of the renowned Hyderabad Public School, she holds an MBA in Finance from Osmania University and Masters in Public Relations from Michigan State University, USA. I once again hand over a master trainer, transformational coach, communication strategist, content expert, mother of 2 extraordinary daughters, CEO of Bassett Education India. Ladies and gentlemen, I once again give you your moderator, Vidya Moorthy.
Thank you. Thank you, Pranay. The key word there is daughters, everybody. Okay. Well, it's been obviously such an enriching session on so many levels. I think the beauty of talking like this and weaving stories with such renowned leaders, I'm so grateful for your time, for your wisdom. I'm just going to leave you with these final thoughts. Persistent systems, it asks us to see beyond and rise above. Bassett&Bassett knows meanings are in people. Zoom is delivering happiness. Tata Technologies is engineering a better world. And Bassett Education India says, be and become. I just wanted to let everybody here know that I'm so grateful to you, Anand, Leland, Eric, and Warren. We leave the session enriched by your voices. I thank again the Zoom India team for their unparalleled customer support. Thank you all to have tuned in here and on social media. Let's all believe that much better times are ahead. I'm Vidya Moorthy, your host, signing off. Good night, and thank you once again. May I request the panelists to stay on for 3 minutes while the rest of the attendees leave? I know it's a little later than we had scheduled, but